Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. This is Delicia. I'm a Fairfield University alum, class of 2014. I know Yamil from when I worked on campus as an academic counselor in Project Excel, like next to diversity. And that's how we kind of knew each other. So as people come in, just mute your mic so there's no background noise. And Yamil is going to walk us through his story and through his experiences, and we're going to have an organic conversation. This might take a different turn from what we had planned because of the current situation in the United States with what's happening, and we're doing this in real time, live every day. I'm also a diversity and inclusion coordinator and advisor, so I'm also doing a lot of workshops and teaching and educating people on racism, white privilege, all of the above. So we're just doing it as we go this week. And Yamil, take it away.
yeah. So I'm also Teach for America, which is a nonprofit organization that battles the battle of racial inequity and discrimination and all that inside the classroom. So I am currently a 7th grade math teacher employed through a Springfield Public Schools. That being said, my road into Teach for America and my road into, like, I feel like an infantryman, because for me, my life story has been that I grew up in the Bronx, New York. That's where I was born. I was born at Lincoln Hospital, if you guys know that. And that's 3rd Ave, South Bronx. And from there, I moved to Bridgeport halfway through my life. And I didn't experience the Bronx in the capacity of the education field because I went to like a nun school. You know, like my parents were fortunate enough to pay for my like K to 5th grade. And then when I came to Bridgeport, I entered the public school realm for the first and only time. I went to John Winthrop Elementary School, 6th to 8th grade, which is my only experience with the public school sector until I became a teacher at Teach for America again. So 6th to 8th grade, middle school, the flunk of your, like, you know, everything, your hormones, your 13-year-old self. That's when I went to middle school in a public school setting. And I always knew that was like an important part of my life, but I just didn't know how to manifest it. Past that, go into Notre Dame Fairfield, which is a predominantly white institution, and I'll be using the term PWI a lot because I feel like I've infiltrated PWI programs. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Most PWI programs and institutions, and I have left my legacy at those institutions, which is like a big game changer to me, because I don't think being at a PWI defined me. I think I defined a PWI, and the reason why I bring up the PWI thing so much is because of the whole George Floyd incident and the whole protesting and Black Lives Matter movement. I am not here to take that away from anyone. Like, Black Lives Matter, and that's point blank, period. And I also think that a lot of people that are in a minority setting right now are trying to justify their race, like their ethnicity, their race, all their statuses through this cloak of power dynamics, power struggles, and discrimination. And they're saying not everyone, not just Black lives go through this, everyone goes through this. And I'm like, that's valid, but let's focus on the point at hand. You know, I was, for a split second, I was like, why is that? Like, I'm Hispanic and that happens, right? But the reason why it happens is because it's ingrained in white America through African American culture that white America oppresses the African American or a person of color. But traditionally, has always happened to the African American, you know? So we know that. We, like, Latinx people know that. People of darker skin know that. And it's so frustrating when you're just like, oh, this is associated to this and this is associated. And here's the thing, like, yesterday I was in a positive psychology class. On Monday, I was in a positive psychology class. On Monday, I had literally gotten off the phone with my faculty and staff where they were disclosing private information. And they were just like, oh, this is important and this is why it's important. And thank you for coming. And we were like in unison. We were in brotherhood. We were in sisterhood, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of that was just really tough things to absorb because these are people that I work with, people that I actually like go out with, you know? And then at 4 o'clock, so this meeting went from 3 to 4 and it went past that, but I had to leave at 4 o'clock for this positive psychology class, and people didn't care, or like people felt like they didn't care. They were just like, okay, so the topic at hand today is positive psychology and meditation. And give me 1 second. I am COVID free. But people in that class, it's a predominantly white class. And I just couldn't process that I just got out of a meeting of police brutality and how it affects my local community, and then go into positive psychology like nothing just happened. Like I needed to process those feelings. So I tried super, super hard to like just engage. I was like, okay, let's just engage. Okay, let's just engage. And I tried for like 15 minutes and I left the class. I was like, I need a mental break. I need a checkout, you know, because like I can't do this. Like if I put all this pressure on me right now, like I'm going to implode. I don't need that, you know? So instead of being in that class for 2.5 hours, I went out to walk my dog with my girlfriend at the park, and it was nice, you know? But the point of that is to illustrate that this is a constant struggle. And if I were to build that up all day, every day, I would implode. Like, know what's it's about it. And I choose to ignore it because I see that it's wrong in some points, and then I see, oh, it's white America, or oh, it's a PWI, or oh, it's a PWI program. And then I say enough is enough, you know? I stand with the Black Lives Matter movement because it's not that Black lives don't matter. Black lives do matter, and everyone else. But at the point of the hand right now, it is police brutality taking away Black innocent lives, right? So I'm here to make my call to action. This is for everyone, right? If I were to make it specifically for my Black peers and African Americans, I could do that. That's fine. I had no problem with that. And I also want to illustrate the point that we can't do things without power, right? And power comes with the status, with the money, with the resumes and all that stuff. And you have to infiltrate. I feel like an infiltrate man because you have to infiltrate the system. If you don't infiltrate the system, how are you ever going to expect change? Riots and protests are not the same thing, right? They're not. The media has intertwined them together, but they're not the same thing, right? And this image that's being perceived, it's not, it's BS. It's BS, you know? And I just want to highlight that because that's where I've been in the last couple of days and talking to so many people about the same experiences. And I'm not here to take that away from anyone. I'm not here to take away their experiences. What I want to do is leave you guys with tools and tips and resume builders. And so you guys can even see my resume. So you can be like, wow, like this be useful. And I could even email my resume if you guys want. Like I'm down for that. I'll leave my email in the description. I'll leave it in whatever recording we have, you know. I want everyone to eat. You know, that's been my mentality for the longest time. And obviously people in my closer circle already know that. But to me, it's like, why are we fighting each other? Why can't we all love? You know, and that's something that I've been raised with. And like, for me, education has also been important because when my mom passed away, the last thing she told me was go get your master's degree. You know, she's raised that in me since like since I was 5, you know. I was always supposed to be the lawyer of the family, and that happened because my grandpa is a lawyer in Ecuador, and he was a judge at one point, you know, and it'd be a noble profession, and like yeah, like obviously, parents always have dreams for you, but then I actually like that stuff, you know, and I understand that stuff, so I'm like, yo, like this is what I want to do, you know, like, and I had this conversation with my dad yesterday. He's like, I'm glad you want to be a lawyer, but make sure you go for the big corporations, like that's where the money's at, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. And I probably will at one point or another. I'm not denying that. But I'm also saying that my passion is not made for the money. My passion is made for the social service. Like, this is something that, and I actually just got out. I had a 3-hour conversation with my dad just now, and because it's his day off. And he told me that my mom always had a need to care for others, and she was always in other people's business. And some people may call that nosy. I call that wanting to help, you know, and that's my innate, like, I'm like, dang, like, I guess I got that from my mom, and, you know, so I always am looking to help. And I'm going on a tangent right now. So, Delicia, if you want to give me a question that I could, like, formally answer, that'd be great, because I could go forever.
Oops, I was muted. Yes, that's an awesome intro, Yamil. And I saw that some people were joining as you're telling your story. So for those that just showed up, I'm Delicia, and I worked at Fairfield and went to Fairfield as an undergrad. Then I also did Teach for America like Yamil. And then I worked in higher ed and went abroad, lived in Brazil as a Fulbright scholar. So, and now I am an online entrepreneur. I run my own business doing resume writing, interview prep, career coaching, diversity and inclusion workshops. So kind of a consultant, and Yamil and I put this together to motivate you, inspire you, but also give you the tools. So let me look at the questions that we have here.
I'm also going to switch screens real quick because so I'm going to leave this, and then I'm going to activate the other Yamil Cobo real quick.
Okay. So if you're just joining, drop in the comments and tell us where you're calling in from and what is your major, if you're still in school or if you already graduated. What's up? Like, who are you? What are you doing? Why are you on this call? And if you have any specific questions for Yamil or me, make sure you put them in the chat. So the first question that Yamil is gonna talk us through is, what is the one tip that you would give to recent grads or undergrads applying to jobs?
What is the one tip I would give to recent grads or undergrads applying to jobs? So I believe at some point or another that you should have multiple resumes. And I mean that in the broadest sense, and I'm going to narrow it down right now. I started my adventure at Fairfield with a whim, right? So I say this in the most respectable way ever, because I was not the Fairfield vibe, you know? I was not the Fairfield norm, right? And I didn't know this when I applied to Fairfield, because for me, I went to a PWI and I had a 3.67 GPA that I graduated high school with. And in my high school was based off of a 5.0 GPA for high honors. So when I got a 3.67, they were like, oh, Fairfield's a reach school for you. And I had average SAT scores. Like I had I think like a 1,400 or 1,500. That's average, you know? And it's because I wasn't ready to take standardized tests, and no one taught me that stuff, you know? They like people in junior and senior year of my high school were taking SAT standardized testing. I didn't have the money to do that, you know? And I'm not going to ask my parents to do that because I'm not burdening them with money, you know? Like, to me, I got it. I'll figure it out. I also think that it's important to realize that even with that, so I had a white counselor that told me that Fairfield was a reach for me. Sacred Heart was the middle school because they partnered with Sacred Heart, and that I should go to Sacred Heart because any other school is kind of a waste of time, in layman's terms, right? And I applied to Fairfield, and I remember with a 3.67 GPA, like I didn't think I was going anywhere with it. I didn't think I was able to go to Ivy schools with it, but it's because that perception was put into my mind, you know? Like I saw my friends getting into NYU, into Fordham, and all these schools, and it was because I thought that I wasn't good enough. And that's because my counselor also reinforced that. It was just like, yeah, you don't really do much at this school, and you only have a 3.67, like Fairfield's kind of a reach for you. And I remember a turning point in why I applied to Fairfield and Sacred Heart was because Fairfield, I applied to Fairfield not because I liked it. I applied to Fairfield because they didn't check SATs. And the above average thing was to do, like, because my SAT scores weren't above average, I was just like, okay, well, maybe if my SAT scores are average, but I have a higher GPA and I do some things the senior year, maybe I'll get into Fairfield, you know? And then I had the decision to go between Sacred Heart and Fairfield, and I chose Fairfield because Notre Dame Fairfield is literally the street across from Sacred Heart University. And I said I wasn't gonna live in the same circle for the next 8 years of my life. You know, I said I already gave 4 years to this place. I'm done. You know, so I went to Fairfield for a change of scenery. That's it. And Fairfield offered me like maybe like $300 more, and money's definitely a factor. But when it's $300, then I'm just like, it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. But money mattered. Like, I remember that I got accepted. No, I got waitlisted into Fordham, and then I finally got into Fordham like after decision day. And then they were just like, yeah, you have to pay like $40,000 to attend. And I was like, what are you talking about? That's not happening, you know? And Fordham's actually a Jesuit school too, just like Fairfield. And I was like, I'm not paying $40,000 a year to do this. So in the hindsight of things, did I make the right decision going to Fairfield? I made the best I could out of a situation. I didn't choose Fairfield because of its diversity. I chose Fairfield because it was a prestigious white institution that was going to get me status in the world today. Not because of the fact that Fairfield did anything for me. Not because Fairfield offered me more money, because I knew its status, right? And you're ingrained to know that status. So that's me going into that tangent. But the one thing I would say is start your resume building in high school. Start your resume building in freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year. I would say start your resume freshman year and edit it every 6 months. And the reason I say that is because of this. I didn't have an official resume until I applied to a new student leader position on campus at Fairfield. And my new student leader actually was helpful in actually showing me how to build a resume, because no one taught me how to build a resume. I remember I had applied to Foot Locker and like a card store to like trading cards to like be like a sales boy, you know? And I applied online, and I didn't know that you had to call people back. I didn't know that you had to like have a beautiful resume. Like, who tells you that stuff? No one tells you that stuff. You know, no one tells you that stuff, especially if you're a person of color. You have to figure that stuff out, you know? So then when my white new student leader told me, oh, you have to build a resume in order to get into this stuff, I was like, what is that? And like, I knew what it was, but I didn't know how to make one. And then she said, oh, you have to also do a cover letter. And I was like, what is that? I knew what it was, but I didn't know how to make one, you know? And like, I will never forget that experience, because she actually helped me make it. And I'm extremely grateful to her. And I've told her that she's like the best NSL that I've ever had, because she did that one thing for me, you know? But I can also say that I got lucky because she also helped me out, you know? People don't naturally are not naturally inclined to help. So that's why I want to give back. That's my calling. Like, when people help me, I want to help back, you know? And it doesn't have to be the person that helped me. I just want to help, you know? So what I would say is start your resume building freshman year. And I can show you my resume. I think I have it on here. And I'll tell you this right now. This is not the resume that I started with. This is not the resume that I started with. It looks fancy, I promise you that, but it's not the resume I started with. And I think I'm looking for the one with the GPA, because I don't.
While Yamil looks for his resume, does anyone have any questions or any thoughts as he looks for it?
Yeah, I'm open to questions. I am more than willing and happy to discuss stuff. Um, 2016. So this is 2016. This was a resume. Oh, okay, yeah. So I mean, this was a resume that I had currently at Fairfield. This is updated in 2016, and then I can show you my resume right now. Yeah, so I can compare two resumes, which definitely makes sense. See if I can.
Remind me what year you graduated?
I graduated last year, 2019.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
what I
so,
thought. Okay.
yep. So I will show you this. So it's come a long way. I'm gonna screen share. I don't know if I could double screen share. So this was my resume back in 2016. I got to Fairfield. Someone's on the chat. Okay.
Yeah, I think Raul had a question. Raul.
Raul. Okay, cool. So what's Raul's question? Let me see. What part of the resume do you think is the most important for a student to focus on? I know the whole resume is important. Okay, so I'll give you my argument and I'll give you white America's argument. So what I was taught to believe is that the GPA matters the most. I was taught to believe that because, I mean, maybe it's because I have an education background and my mom stressed that out on me because she's been systematically oppressed through this resume and like, you know, all that stuff, you know, like I'm not here to preach, but I was taught that GPA was the most important thing to me. I was also taught that in my PWI high school that a 3.67 was not good enough out of a 5.0 scale, right? Because that's average, right? I was also taught my senior year of Fairfield when I applied to TEACHFORAMERICA and when I was looking for jobs and programs that a 3.5 or below is not recommended on your resume. I didn't know that. When I first wrote my resume, this is my resume updated in November 2016. So I like to keep things organized. So this says resume updated November 2016, and it's all over the place. So look at this. This looks organized, but I'll show you the end product that I currently have. My name's on the top. My address, I don't live there anymore, so that's fine. That is my current cell phone number. I don't use that. I do use that email, but if you want a better email, I can send you that. Education, Fairfield University, bachelor's, psychology, 3.27, right? 3.27 is not Fairfield standard, right? I also want to express that a 3.27 at Fairfield might be like 3.6 at a regular institution, which is important to highlight. I don't want to take away and be like, oh, well, I'm at Fairfield University, so that GPA means like, you know, like other people know this. And I had to deal with that because I was told that it's not good enough, you know? But, okay, so I was an RA. I was a residential assistant. I think that's something that's very important, and I do in my resumes, is I look for action words, and that's how, like, it looks so formal, right? Here I put directly, here I facilitate, and here I implement. That was my current position when I did this in 2016. So that's why they're present, right? They're present verbs. You're actively doing these things, so you want an active action verb, right? And that's something that I was taught in a resume workshop, you know, and reinforced through career services or whatever. New student leader, created a safe environment. Notice how this was not my job anymore, right? I ended that in December 2016. So this is probably an outdated title, but I ended that in December 2016. So this is probably like a January 2017 document. Does it say when last edited? Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah, January 26, 2017. So that's when this was last edited. So I ended my job in December of 2016. So these are past tense nouns, right? Still action, but past tense, because I had ended that job. It was terminated, right? And here, this is where I would say it gets a little tricky because my resume, the reason I ordered these in the way I ordered them is because I felt like my residential assistant job provided me the most for my money. Like I could talk about it the most. Office of Students Affair, the new student leader thing was the second highest thing that I did in my status, in my positions. And then I was also an intramural league referee. I forgot about this. Like, I forgot that I was a referee, but I was. And I officiated games, and I addressed the rule books and infractions. And I literally like found like templates of what does a referee do, and then I made these sentences. Like literally just look them up on Google. Like, plenty of people have their resumes online, and then just make it your own. Like, obviously don't plagiarize. That's not fun. But and here's a quickie. I have additional information, only 2 things. Participated in strengths, quest, top 5, whatever. Currently in the honors program at Fairfield University. I want to stress the fact that if you do not know what you are talking about in your resume, do not talk about it. Do not bring it up in your resume. Because if you cannot speak to that point, it doesn't mean anything. It's just an empty sentence. And that's what I learned very quickly. And that's how I got 6 out of 6 jobs at Teach for America. And that's how I got into a Teach for America program that I didn't even know was 12%. It's tougher to get into Teach for America than Harvard Law School, apparently, according to their website. That's what they're saying. I don't think so, but that's what they said. So this was in my resume by the end of 2020. I can show you my resume now, but this was my resume January 26, 2017, last modified at 7:04 p.m. It's good to keep timestamps because then you can know where it is. And I just like to keep organized. That's me in my private life. And now I'm going to share my screen. Did you guys see the switch? Screen sharing pause. Okay, it says screen sharing pause. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to bring up my resume right now, and then my current resume. I actually think I already have updated this, but do I have the most recent? Let me check. This is 12/3. No, this is my most recent one, and this was this was right before COVID. That's funny. Yeah, because I haven't updated my resume since COVID. Okay, so this is my resume now, and I could also show you my TFA resume that got me into TFA, and a very prestigious program. But I talked about the stuff that in my resume, like I didn't do it. I didn't do it in terms of like I didn't just do it to do it. I didn't do it for the resume builder. I did it because I cared about those stuff, So here's my resume. This was my address in my dad's, and this is a still current number, wrong email address, so I do have to actually edit that. My education, I graduated Fairfield University with a Bachelor's of Arts in May 2019. That's why it's the top thing, right? That's my highest level of education thus far. Currently, I actually do have to update this as well. I'm in grad school now at Boston University. But like this is all I need to really like get into a program like Fairfield, like that's status. Not that I want to boast it. It's just that it's there, and people may look at that and be like, oh, that's cool. But you have to talk about your points, because if you don't talk about them, it means nothing. You know what I mean? Like, people can know Fairfield, but you have to sell Fairfield. You have to sell yourself. You have to market yourself. Why is Fairfield an important institution? Because it's ranked 3 in Egan School of Nursing, or it's ranked 2 in Dolan School, whatever, make it yours. Own it. But also own it to your advantage. Profit from it, You pay that money, you can use that title, right? My major was a psychology major, minor sociology and communications. I was part of the honors program, also part of the pre-law society. My distinctions are Dean's List, Fall 17, Fall 18, right? Remember, notice this. Notice that this is a long way from what I had in Dropbox, if I can get to it. I want to see if I could double screen share. Nope, that is my classwork for my 7th graders. There we go. Cool. So I'm gonna do something. Can I double screen share? I can. That's beautiful. Okay. Ready? So 2017 resume compared to my current resume, right? And look, like something small, like my address being here to being there, like And I can annotate on this? Yes, I can. Look at that. That's beautiful. I love being a teacher. Something small, like having my, can I draw? Can I draw? How can I draw? Oh, here we go. I can't draw on these. I can draw on my resume. I can't draw on the Dropbox. I could draw on the Microsoft Word, just to clarify. So something small like having my address here as opposed to where it is in the other one over here, right? That's a huge difference because it looks organized, right? It's just appealing to look at, right? By the eye, that catches you by the eye. Another thing that's important to recognize is that I had bachelor's of arts and I had my major. I never included my minors in this. I'm almost positive I already had these two minors in 2017. And I also was in the honors program, and I also 2017 fall 17. So I had also received my fall 17's deaned list by then, you know. But I didn't put those in my resume because I didn't think they were important. I just knew that. Can I send you my resume? We can go over it right now. Give me 1 second, because I just want to highlight a couple of things real quick. I am definitely down for that. Let me finish explaining the current from the past, just because I think that's a huge step in that. When you finish, okay, cool. Thanks, Raul. I keep saying this chat. Is it Google Docs? Send it to me. Yes, please. That'd be great. She's also a career specialist in resume building, so this is her niche. But like, I've learned this stuff, but I am definitely willing to work on it as well. Okay. Course highlights. Like, they tell you, they told me at Fairfield University, they were like, you're a senior. If you're going to apply for things, have niches, right? And niches are a psychological term to be like, where do you fit in, right? And I knew this because I was a psychology major. So I was like, oh, duh, of course, that makes sense. Not a lot of people know what niches are. And when I applied to Teach for America, I'm pretty sure I used these same course highlights because I haven't taken them off my list, but I used psychology and the law, criminology, and argument and advocacy, right? Those are three classes that I very much liked. But I liked them too. That's the thing. Because Teach for America preaches this diversity, inclusion, and equity and stuff. And what I did when I applied to TFA was I used my course highlights. And when they asked me the question, why did you put these course highlights? I said, because I love them and because they relate to your mission. I researched the company. I researched the hell out of Teach for America before I even got an interview with them. And I analyzed and researched and said, how does this fit into my brain? And how do I fit into Teach for America's company, right? I think something that's super important to fit into is that, and Delicia is going to ask this question eventually, but can you ask it, Delicia, just so I can have like some flow? Like, I know I'm going on a tangent, so
No,
like,
you're not. You're not going on a tangent. You are talking exactly the importance of resume writing, right? It's not only the style that you're talking about, which is the master resume and then the individual resume per company that you're applying to.
Right.
So part of that is your research for I just wrote it in the chat, research the company you are applying to and how you fit into that company in that organization.
Right.
So what you're talking through right now in terms of like the bullet points and the skills are matching what you researched in the company, so then you can talk about it and show them how you are perfect for the job. That's right. That's the ultimate goal, right?
Yeah. I just wanted to organize those thoughts because like, I also think that, my GPA mattered here. Obviously, I was still in undergrad. My GPA ain't on my master resume right now. Who the hell cares about my GPA? I have a job now, and it is my current job, which is Impact Prep at Chestnut Accelerated Middle School, current August 2019 to whatever, right? I'm currently a teacher. I taught today. You know, if you want to see my lesson plan, please let me know. But again, using the same skills that I did back then, right? Develops, right? Notice, it's current, it's action, communicates, meets, complies, identifies, when you look at someone and you're just like, oh, they develop, they communicate, they meet, complies, and identifies, like, you're just like, yo, this guy sounds intelligent, you know? And like, they don't even need to see me. Like, when you hand in a resume, more likely than not, to an online company, they're going to look at the resume. They don't look at your face. They don't put a face to it until you get an interview. And then you won't even get an interview if your resume looks like crap, you know? So that's why I knew very quickly when my peer told me my freshman year, oh, you need a resume for that? And I didn't have one. I was like, okay, teach me, you know? Like, people need to learn this stuff, but people also need to be taught this stuff, you know? And that's why I think that career services, and that's why I even went back, you know? Like, I had figured out most things by my senior year of how to build a resume, but I literally just wanted to polish it up. And that's why my master resume looks like my master resume. Not because I needed it, but because I wanted to, you know? Because I wanted to fit in, right? This resume does not define me. That I define this resume. This means nothing to anyone unless I talk about it. You know what I mean? So going into that, Distinguished Gentleman Club, they asked me at Teach for America, what is the Distinguished Gentleman Club, and how does this even, why does this matter? You know, every single question at the end of the day, when you're doing an interview, is why does this point matter? And why does this role matter? And why does your GPA matter? And why does it matter? Why are you here? Right? That's how I see things in that perspective, right? And when they asked me what was Distinguished Gentleman Club, this is all I could have said. I could have literally read off my resume if I wanted to. But when they asked me that question, I said, okay, do you want the leadership experience or do you want the personal experience? And they said, either works. I was like, if you want the lead, did I spell president? Oh no, I thought I was going paired. Right? I don't know. Anyways, I don't think so. Anyways,
It's spelled correctly. It just looks weird.
okay. I was just like, but see, that's me going into like analytic mode. Like,
Yeah.
that's me automatically like looking at the smallest thing, because I know people look at the smallest thing.
Yeah,
you know?
and that's a good point, because that's going to be your last step in your resume writing process.
Right.
Is before you submit it, you have to go through the grammar, and you have to go line by line by line by line. It's very tedious, but you have to do it.
Right. This is what I do when I make professional posts on LinkedIn, and when I update my resume on LinkedIn and stuff, I read that stuff for like an hour before I post it. When I do it on Instagram, I don't care. Like, that's personal. And when I do it on Twitter, I care even less. And then when I know when it's something I'm very passionate about, then I'll spell check and stuff, right? Like, I think social media is like for raw emotion, but you can also use it to like market yourself, right? So they say that your social media should be private, but companies are going to find out either way. I think it's BS, and they probably did research me. I'm not even gonna lie, they probably did research me, but I kept my stuff private when I was job hunting, except my LinkedIn account. And then when I became a teacher, I made it public. But because I made it public, I now know that I cannot go on a tangent about whatever is inappropriate because everyone's watching. That's the difference between a public Instagram account and a private Instagram account. Even when it's private, like, people can find dirt from you. Like, it's easy. Like, all it takes is one bot that you followed by mistake, and they can find it.
And I just want to add to that point
Yeah,
is,
go ahead.
yes, companies may not have the bandwidth to be looking at your social media, but it is recommended to, if you don't want them to find something, either you clean it up, or you make it super private, or you create two separate accounts. So one is public, one is personal.
Private. Yep.
Like, one is public and professional, and then one is private, personal. Not that you're like doing crazy things or out of the ordinary. If you just
Right.
don't want people in your work environment to see what you're doing, like,
Right.
if you don't want them to know who your family is and what your life is about, that's totally fine. You can keep it separate.
Yep.
But those are kind of the ways to go about it.
Yep.
if you have to make that choice for yourself, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just a matter of reflecting on what do you want to do.
Right. Thank you, Delicia, to that point. Because honestly, like for me, like I've made my Instagram private, public, every which way about it, and like it really depends on the day. Like it really comes out to that. I'm like, what am I doing today? Like, what am I doing in the next year or so? Like, if I'm applying to something, I'll probably make it private. If I'm content, I'll probably make it public because I like my mind spoken. But that's just who I am. There is no right or wrong answer to that. Just be careful. That's for sure. But that's how I view my 2 cents. Going back to the resume. Is there something in the chat? Yeah, there is. Great question. We will answer it, Omar. Is there occasions where a GPA in a resume would matter? For example, does GPA matter if I'm a business major compared to someone who's a nurse? Ooh, I'm gonna answer that right now because that's super important. And I would appreciate it if you could expand more on that, Omar. Could you expand more on that? Like, do you mean GPA, like, in terms of, like, oh, you're only doing business and this person's only doing nursing? Or is it like, oh, you're doing business and X, Y, and Z, and they're doing nursing and X, Y, and Z? Yeah, only business. Okay. Super important. If your only thing on your resume is your GPA, that should be super high. Super high. Like, it should be to that threshold of 3.5 and above that Fairfield told me, because that's the only thing that's on your resume. But let me stress the fact that I think everyone at one point or another, like Omar, you're president of Distinguished Gentlemen right now. Like, he's my little, and he's the president of Distinguished Gentlemen. Like, he's put in so much work, and I promise you his resume can look beautiful. And I know that he's business, but the business leadership role, the business and leadership role go hand in hand. When you become part of the workforce, they look for leadership. They don't just look for a worker, right? And there's always been this mentality of in Hispanic culture that you don't want to work for the man, you want to be the man, right? And I think that's so true in white America. Like, I'm working for the man right now. I'm working for Springfield Public Schools, but eventually I want to be an entrepreneur and be self-sufficient, Like, that's the American dream. And you have to play the game to get those results. But in order to do that, I have a resume like this that plays the game, But I learned this stuff. I didn't like have it day one. Omar, you can unmute and share your own for business. Do you mean applying for jobs or applying for grad school? Got it, Raul. Thank you. And what was that question for me? Okay. Lisa, do you want to answer that?
Oh, so that question was for Omar. Does he mean like your resume, your GPA as applying to a job applying? Yeah. Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, for a job, yeah, for sure. Like, so here's my thing. Like, my personal experience with Teach for America, which was apparently harder to get into than Harvard Law School, which I wish I would have known because I would have crushed that interview for Harvard Law School then. But Teach for America, when I sat down at that table, I took control of that room because the resume looked good, but she asked me the questions and I directed questions right back. Like, I had a conversation. Like, it didn't feel like an interview, it felt like a conversation. Like, she was like, why is this important? Why is that important? And I'm like, oh, this is important because of this and this experience and X, Y, and Z. And you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, you have to explain yourself. Think about it this way. If you were to meet someone for the first time and you had not the slightest clue about them, would you want them to explain themselves or would you want to find out? I think 9 times out of 10, human nature wants things explained to us and we're scared of the unknown, right? So when you're in an interview process, you're an unknown candidate, right? And then you have to make yourself known. You have to leave that impression on someone right then and there. And you have a limited time to do it. So that's so much pressure. But if you think of that pressure, you might stumble with water, which I did. I stumbled the water in my TFA resume and I laughed about it, not because I'm arrogant, but because I was having a conversation and oops, I made a mistake. I was clumsy. I was still nervous. I'm not saying that I wasn't nervous. I'm saying that you have to take control in the sense that you can facilitate a conversation with someone that you've never met. You know what I mean? Because that person can decide if you get into that program. right? That person has a big responsibility on their hands, and they get hundreds of applications every day. That person is also looking for someone that makes them stand out. So when I had a conversation with my TFA recruiter and interviewer, they were like, "Oh, that's awesome," and blah blah blah, you know, like. And I remember those experiences too. Like, I think the most important thing that you can think about in a resume is you analyze, you build, and you analyze, establish, and build, right? You analyze what they're telling you. You establish something that builds rapport with them, what they just told you, and then you build on that using a point on your resume. Because that point is like, oh, wow, he already thought of this. Maybe, or maybe I need that resume to work for me, because those words mean nothing unless I give them power. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean. Like, make the resume work for you. So like I said, there's subtle details. And then again, just here, additional information, right? Participated in Clifton top 5 strengths. I remember when I did these top 5 strengths, I was an NSL, and I was super impressed by I'm not gonna name drop, but the Office of Student Engagement, their coordinator at the time, was literally did this in front of us. She was like, "Don't put your top 5 strengths in your resume if you don't know what they mean." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she literally, in front of a room of 82 NSLs, said, "My top 5 strengths are this because of this, and this is why this is that, and this is cool. And like, wow, I'm an introverted person, so I have this skill. And wow, this person seems to be extroverted, so they have the woo skill that means winning others over, right?" So I can literally tell you, I could live stream an example right now. Delisa, can you ask me the question of why I have my top 5 strengths?
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to feel like it's in the moment. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's see. Getting to the I was trying to convert Raul's
No worries.
thing. So let me think. Okay. So the in relations to strengths quests,
Yeah.
it's kind of talking about why did you choose those leadership opportunities to expand on versus the additional information, but also like how does this relate to leadership, right? So let's say
Right.
you don't have that many leaderships experiences, but you have strengths quests. Like how does that stand out as the main point?
Right. So here's what I said, because I was a youth student leader, but this applies to all my positions, right? So my top 5 strengths are, so if Delicia was my interviewer, I'd say, "Delicia, thank you for the question. I also want to address that the reason why I chose the Clifton top 5 strengths in my additional information and the first part of my resume was because I am futuristic. If I am on your team, I am always thinking about the future. I want to analyze things. I want to create things for the company that I envision myself to be in, right? I'm restorative. When there's a, not, I wouldn't say toxic, when there's a, and I do this all the time in resumes. When there's a, I'm thinking in the moment. When there's a difficult situation with a teammate, I also want to make sure that we can work on the same page for the growth and betterment of the company, right? Because if we can't do that, then we cannot see eye to eye, and then we're not leading by example. We're not a team. We need to lead by example, and I want to be in unison with all my coworkers. That's super important to me as a worker. I cannot be in an environment that does not promote that. Deliberate. Why are you deliberate? Well, I have purpose in what I want to do. I look at things and I say, hey, how can I execute this goal? But also, what is my action for this goal? What is my deliverable? It's deliberate and deliverable, right? Because you need to have action plans in order to want to do this. If there's no purpose behind your mission, then why are you doing it? It goes back to the question of why, right? I want to be part of this company, so I'm going to do my best footing in this company because this company means X, Y, and Z to me. Analytical. Why are you analytical? Thank you for asking me the question. Analytical to me means that I am always analyzing the situation and I want to carefully construct a feedback or response or a plan or action step before I do anything drastic. right? I think logically. And I also encourage my coworkers that may have an opposite reaction to me to help me collaborate in these situations as opposed to creating turmoil or distress or whatever. Woo. What does woo mean? Woo means winning others over. Winning others over means that I'm always trying to be a team player. I always want to innovate, but I also want to have a good time with my coworkers. I don't want to just be in a work environment. I want to be in a safe environment. I want to be in a brave environment. I want to be in an environment where I can participate and I can feel authentic to my authentic self, right? And I feel like this job right here that Delicia is offering me seems like the perfect fit. I can see myself working for your company. I really think that sometimes that I already have the job, but I don't. And what I want you to know is that I'm willing and ready to work for you. I'm excited to work for you. And I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that I'm here. Thank you.
Round of
And
applause.
and that's literally from one sentence on my resume, you know? But I have so many sentences on my resume. They don't mean anything until I give them action and words. You know what I mean? Thank you.
That was, I think, really important to highlight because I think some students or some individuals think that because they don't have all these leadership experiences, they can't talk about themselves in a positive leadership way. If you did one leadership experience on campus, no matter what institution you're at, that is something that you can expand on and make a whole resume on. And like Yamil just talked about 5 strengths in a resume form to showcase why he's the best candidate if this was a hypothetical job, right? So part of this conversation and this workshop is to showcase all of those skills that you can build to do it for yourself, right? Later, when we go through Raul's resume, if he wants to do like a practice round of interview questions, we can, because
I could definitely be the interviewer.
Yeah, because it's all about practicing. It's about gaining confidence and talking about yourself, right? So can you talk a little bit about how you do that?
So I'll tell you this. It sounds funny, but I took a mass communications class, and all these projects and all this stuff, argument and advocacy. That's why I put this on my course highlights. Argument and advocacy taught me how to public speak. Like that's the course that I took for it. And then I also had to take speeches, and every speech, every week there was like a speech that I had to do, and I had to talk about the connections and stuff. It wasn't just like I learned this overnight. I literally studied a semester of this, and like all the projects that you do for classes, like they feel like BS, and I promise you they do sometimes. But if you take them to the next level, think about your projects in school as practicing for the real world, right? Because your project doesn't mean anything to your professor unless you give it that action, you know? Because you're a professor, and this is me being an educator, and this is me being a teacher, your professor or your teacher wants to see that you are making these connections in the real world. Why? Because that's called critical thinking. Because that's called reason. That's what people thrive on. That's what makes an effective leader, you know? And I have all these leadership experiences, but it's not just me, you know? Like Alicia said, if I had one leadership experience, and I'll tell you this, I had on this, or I'll tell you on this one, on this resume, I had things like intramural referee. What is that? Like, it doesn't sound important, right? But I can make that intramural league referee something competitive or something important, right? So let me do that for the referee position. Why is the referee position important? Because I believe in a chain of command, because I believe that someone has to keep the rules in order, because without that, we don't have a functioning system, you know? And if we don't have a functioning system, how on earth are we ever going to play a game, right? To play a game, you need to have rules and authorities and roles and positions. And I was a central part in that referee game. Even though they were just playing volleyball, that volleyball game was kept in check. And because I officiated it and I addressed the rules and I regulated that stuff and I made sure none of the rules were broken. Because if not, we don't have a game. It's not a fair game in that sense. And who doesn't want a fair game? Similarly, who doesn't want to be in a fair and loving working environment? Who does not want to have that in their life? And also, I want to tell you that if I were to be part of your position and part of your job, I think that I can enforce the rules. And I think I could try to make them even better because I want to work for this company so much so that I can see myself. I already have an idea for you. Do you want to hear the idea? I can show you the idea. I don't know what company I'm applying for, but like that's why I would research it ahead. But if I had an idea, like I would try to think of an idea at that moment and then present it to them. And it doesn't have to be foolproof. It just has to be an idea because they're thoughts at the end of the day, you know, like no one thinks about your thoughts as something powerful until you make them powerful, you know. These are just words on a resume. You give them the power. And that's why the big catalyst of this workshop is a GPA, right? Because people historically have looked at GPAs and been like, oh, if this GPA is below a certain threshold, I'm not even looking at it. And I was told that technically. Like my threshold at Fairfield University was 3.5 or higher. You should put it on your resume. And look at this. This is not my TFA resume, but this is when I was applying to jobs. Like when I had an RA position and youth student leader position and a referee back then. Then by the time that I finished college, obviously my job, president, resident assistant, and I did this for 3 years. I didn't even put that I did sophomore and freshman housing. I didn't put that I was a summer program coordinator. So I've got jobs after this. Youth student leader, like I could probably take this out now because I have something else to highlight, you know. I also was founder of a bowling club. I also participated in the honors program. I did a lot of stuff then, and I expanded on those stuff once upon a time. I could show you every step of the process. I'm sure that would take forever, but I can do it. So yeah, is there questions on the chat?
One thing I wanted to add was you don't have to include like 20 bullet points, right?
You don't.
You can add anything you don't include on your resume, but you have it written down. You use that for your cover letter and then for your interview preparation, right? Mm-hmm. So everything Yamil said about the strengths quest, what is it called? They change it every year, the name. The strengths quest, Cliff Finder, whatever. So that's 5 different strengths. If you took that test, you can look up all those definitions of it and then just work your answers around it. Like you don't have to put the answers in your resume, but you can do it on your cover letter or in the interview process.
I also can I say a couple things on that?
Yes, say everything you want.
I also want to stress the fact that I've seen resumes with 1 leadership experience and a bunch of additional information, and I don't get that because of the fact that if it's additional information, it should be something that you can talk about like that, but it shouldn't be the main focus, right? So like Delicia said, if I did not have a job and I only had 1 job at Fairfield University, my whole resume would be the Clifton top 5 strengths. If I was only a new student leader and I had Clifton top 5 strengths, my resume would be this. Actually, no, it probably look like the other one. I definitely know. So this has 2 bullet points. Here it had 3 bullet points, right? And I decided to take out a bullet point there. I remember when I first got the NSL job, it had like 5 bullet points. It had 5 bullet points for whatever reason. I didn't need 5 bullet points for a new student leader, but it was my only job. So of course I was going to highlight it. And then for my additional strengths, I could elaborate on this forever. Or I could just put Clifton top 5 strengths for Program Finder as a experience and then talk about those 5 bullet points. You can make these 5 bullet points. And don't take them from the website because that's plagiarism, but make them your own, you know? So that's what I want to stress. You don't need to have all the leadership experience that I have either. And you don't need the GPA that I had either. I've seen people get into great programs with 2.5s and above. And I will say that there is a threshold to what is expected in the workforce, right? Like I've had a recruiter for NBC tell me that he wouldn't look at a resume below 2.5, and that's sucks, but it's the reality of the work climate right now, right? If I were a job recruiter, I would look at it maybe, you know, but I also want to stress the fact that 2.5 and under, not 2.5 and under, 2.4 and under starts getting into murky water, right? Because if you have a 2.4 and under, for me personally, I think that why are you in school? Because I also understand what a 2.4 and under means, right? If I were to look it up right now, a 2.4 and under, I think a 2.4 is like 2.4 college GPA, right? And this is all I have to do if I'm at signals that they've earned within a B minus and C plus range, right? So B minus student, I'm still taking. A C plus range, I'm iffy on it because your GPA defines multiple classes, not just one class, right? And I also know there are students that have failed one class or gotten a really low grade on one class, and that messes up their entire GPA. Like I think I have like 3 or 4 C's on my transcript. And that's important to highlight because I didn't do 100% well on my classes. Like I was a B-ish student, you know. I wasn't an all A student, and even then, I still put my GPA on because they were just like, yeah, 3.5 or higher. A 3.5 or higher. Let's look at what a 3.5 or higher means in standards of college GPAs. So 3.5 or higher is 3.5 or higher unweighted is an A minus average, right? So what Fairfield essentially told me was that you need an A minus or higher grade point average in order to do the national, like in order to get accepted into most jobs. And that you don't, like, again, it's the same thing that my high school counselor told me, right? He's like, oh, you have this GPA, but it doesn't matter because you haven't done anything, right? And he was right. But he didn't teach me that I could talk about my stuff, right? What did I do in high school? I did chess club, I did gaming club, and I did bowling club. That's how I became founder of bowling club and president at Fairfield University, because I learned from that experience. But I could have talked about those things. No one let me because no one taught me how to do that stuff, you know? And I didn't do an interview at Fairfield. Like, I know a lot of people that say, oh, what really changed my application at Fairfield was that I did the interview. I didn't do the interview at Fairfield because I didn't want to. I was scared. I was scared that I was going to mess it up for myself. And the reason why I chose Fairfield, and I think they gave me more money, was because they saw my SAT score and they were like, oh, or Sacred Heart saw my SAT score, and also Fairfield didn't because they said we don't look at SAT scores, and I submitted without my SAT scores, you know, because it was average, right? Again, these are all just standards that are programmed into you, or programmed into me, but that's what I thought was the status quo. I thought that I needed a 4.0 GPA. I thought I needed to be involved in every single position possibly available. And I thought that I also needed to have more volunteering services or whatever. Like, no, I didn't need that. I just needed to talk about these things. I needed to talk about these things and make it make sense, right? Because when someone asks you, why does this matter? You have to make it make sense for them, right? And that's like a hashtag or whatever, make it make sense. But it's also very true. Make it make sense. Because if you don't make it make sense, how do you even try to get into things? Like you're giving me this resume, but you're telling me that I can't. But you can't. You're giving me this resume, but you're telling me that you cannot talk about it. Like it. How? You built this resume when? 10 minutes? 5 minutes? 2 minutes? Or did you spend hours on this resume? This resume is 1 page. 1 page. Let me highlight that. 1 page. And that's probably the standard for most resumes. It's 1 page. When I applied to a Foot Locker in my school, or not my school, in my local area, I handed them like a 3-page resume, and I was just like, I'm in high school and I love sneakers and all this stuff. And like, I really thought that was it, you know? And I got into an interview at Foot Locker, and I never got the job at Foot Locker. I never even heard back from Foot Locker. And I was just like, aren't they supposed to call me? Aren't they supposed to do this? No, you're supposed to do that. You are trying to work for that company, and they're not trying to work for you. That's why when you're in an interview room, you got to set the precedent that you're there for them, right? Even though you may not be, even though you may just need a job, but you got to make it seem like you are, you know? And I will add to that point by saying that I didn't want to be a teacher. I didn't want to do Teach for America. I was not happy when I got into Teach for America because it's not what I wanted to do. My next step in life was to be a lawyer. I wanted to go into law school, but I was not ready to take that step. That my action step was not ready because I did not have a deliverable. My deliverable was
take the LSAT and see what you did, how you do. So you could rank yourself into a competitive pool that is law school, right? Law school is super competitive, or at least people say. And now when I read what Teach for America said, that they're harder to get into than Harvard Law School, I'm kind of mad that I didn't go to law school, you know? But it is what it is, you know? And I'm also an educator, and I also want to teach, because to me, that's my passion. It aligns with my social justice passion. It's why I've also been extremely vocal in the Black Lives Matter movement. It's also why I've been extremely vocal in this institutional racism, oppression system that we have at these PWIs. I've been a part of PWIs most of my life, except for 6th to 8th grade. Why does 6th to 8th grade bring back so many good memories and everything else is like a blur? Because they didn't make it for me. They didn't make those institutions for me. 6th to 8th grade was authentic. 6th to 8th grade, I was in Bridgeport with everyone. I was there with white people. I was there with black people. I was there with Hispanic people, my Asians, everybody, Puerto Ricans, everyone. It didn't matter who you were. I didn't judge you by your color of your skin. But white America does, you know? And that's my point. Like, my point is that there shouldn't be a racial divide. There shouldn't be this ethnic divide. There should be. You should look at someone by who they are. Don't judge a book by its cover. Judge them by their character, not their skin. Judge them by their character, not their ethnicity. You know, it just doesn't make sense. And I'm gonna leave with this comment because I think it's super powerful. I had my mom passed away in 2016. And I'm very open with that because I have a tattoo of her, and like, I love her. She's my best friend. And Fairfield University 100% offered me support, financial support, emotional support, psychological support, whatever. They did their part, right? So when my mom passed away, I identify as a non-practicing Catholic because I believe in the Catholicism faith, but I don't support it 100%. So that's why I non-practice. Jesuit institutions are based off Catholicism and Christianity and so forth. So I didn't take the psychological services. I definitely took the money. That was without question. I needed to pay school. But the one aspect of all the services that they provided and promoted to me the minute that happened, because they found out through the NSL team, and it was cool. It was very heartfelt. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, that was like one of the realest moments that I really had at Fairfield. And I was like, yo, like, it didn't matter about the color of my skin. It didn't matter because I was having a blast when I was in NSL. Like, I enjoyed my NSL experience, and then I didn't, and then I left, and that's fine, you know. Going back to the point. So I sit down, and I took the spiritual service that they offered, right? Their spiritual service was like, why don't you talk to a father of the Jesuit Revere, whatever you want to call it, Jesuit mission, the fathers that they have there, right? And I'm not going to name a father, but if this father knows who he is, that it is what it is, man. But I sit down at the like common dining room area with this father, and we're having lunch. He obviously wants to talk to me about my mother's death and how I feel impacted about it, right? He starts off the conversation by, how do you feel right now? How can you process? Do you still love God and all that stuff? And like, you know, what a father does. I'm not mad at him for that. The last thing that he told me, and the thing that I always remember, was he said, how do you feel being a person of color, POC, in a PWI? How do you feel being a person of color in a predominantly white institution? Why the hell does that matter, bro? Like, I'm talking about my mom's death, and you talking to me about the color of my skin? And that was the first time I really noticed that Fairfield preaches diversity, but does not care about diversity. Like, that's the wrong place to talk about it. And I know you're spiritual, but why are you talking about this right now? You know what I mean? Like, I was so, like, I was very calm when that happened. But now I'm exploding because I'm just like, you're going to talk to me about religion, and then you're going to ask me about the color of my skin? What? I'm not even thinking about the color of my skin. I'm trying to process my mom's death. What are you talking about? That doesn't make sense to me. Why are you judging me? Oh, why do you even think about the color of my skin right now? Like, what does that mean? I'm trying to process my mom's death. And you're the one service that I actually went out to talk to. And you disappointed me with that bullshit. How does that make sense? And that's not the first time. And it wasn't the last time that I had a microaggression thrown out at me at Fairfield. I chose to ignore them because I didn't know how to react. But it doesn't mean that it's the only time. I'm going to leave you out with that because it strikes me that a predominantly white institution tries to be predominantly white and does not hide it. They don't hide it. You just have, as a person of color, you have to ignore it because if not, you'll go insane. If not, you'll blow up every 5 seconds. Because if not, you won't be heard. It doesn't matter. They'll look at you crazy and they'll be like, why are you blowing up on me? I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. No, don't give me your hands up. Give me an action plan. Why are you talking about this right now? You know? Make it make sense. And that's it. I mean, like, I am also here for resumes. So
I wanted to say thank you, Yamil, for sharing all of those layers of your experience, because you can't ignore parts of your experience and your identity through this process. The point of the resume is not to eliminate your identity. It's not to eliminate who you are. In fact, bringing who you are is your superpower and your authenticity to the job, right? Yamil just went through technical skills on how to show up in your interview, but also the realities of what we deal with, not only at a predominantly white institution as a student, but what we deal with in the workforce, on the daily, in the job, right? Like someone coming up to you and say, "Oh my God, your English is so good." I'm like, yes, B, I grew up in this country. Like, yes, I speak Spanish at home, but that doesn't mean I speak better English than my parents do. That's a microaggression, right? And people need to realize that we deal with it daily, and it's very tiring. This is why we're in this situation today. This is why the United States is literally in flames, because we are tired. Black lives are tired. Latino lives are tired. Asian lives are tired. This is institutionalized racism that trickles down daily. And all of us, we are trying, I mean, for me, right? I'm going to self-identify Latina, first gen. I'm not going to speak for everyone on this call, but we are trying to survive and thrive in this world. So the fact that you showed up today and you're willing to learn about resumes and have these conversations means a lot. It means that you're willing to learn through your experiences and also be in community, right? So I think Yamil did amazing in going through all those technical skills. I'm going to look at my questions really quick.
Yeah, for sure.
Does anyone have any questions? I didn't look at the chat. Why don't
we could also go through Raul's resume.
Like how there is, yeah, we can start a Latino university for sure. Here, let me put that in the, yeah, I know Zoom like randomly, oh, there we go. So why don't we start a Hispanic Latino university, like how there is a Black university like Howard, which is 86% Black. Yeah, predominantly white Hispanic institution, right? That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have any last thoughts or things you want to leave students with, Yamil?
Last thoughts that I want. Yeah. So your GPA doesn't define you. Your resume doesn't define you. You define you. Remember that. It doesn't matter whatever leadership opportunity you had, what you didn't have. A lot of people are going to tell you otherwise. Keep to yourself. Keep to your authentic self, because that's more powerful than any resume sentence. That's more powerful than any GPA. That's more powerful than a lot of things. And if you have to play the game, sometimes if you have to get that 3.5 because that's the only thing you do, go do it. If you have to get that 4.0, go do it. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm saying it doesn't define you.
Right.
Because what defines you is your authentic self, and I truly believe that. So that's why I do this work. And that's why I was so happy to do this workshop. And in a racially charged time that we are now, like, it's even more important, because I'm a person of color. I identify as a Latinx student. And I'll keep on saying this out. I infiltrated white programs and institutions, and I'm successful, quote unquote, but I don't see it as that. I see it as I worked my ass off to get there. And I'm happy that my parents gave me that opportunity. And like my dad's been here for 2 hours. I don't know if he's actually been listening, but like, thank you, Pa. Thank you to my ma. And thank you to my whole family, because without them, I wouldn't have learned these traits. I wouldn't have picked them up. I'm just applying what people have taught me, and culminating it all together. But remember, you define you.
Awesome. I love that. So thank you so much for chatting about this. And we're going to continue this conversation. This week is really tough. This week is a lot for the US, but we are showing up and we are finding ways to survive and also thrive in these communities.
Right.